https://discord.gg/flat earth.
Welcome to 24/7 Flat Earth Discord channel. Be sure to go to VC Chi Check-in 1 to get your VC verification tags to get involved in the conversation about our Earth. Be sure to bring your verifiable Earth curvature evidence, though.
Enemy spotted.
Big Guy Who Kills Part 2.
You know, I'm clowning, but like, they have a large following, and the fact that they're willing to put those words out into the ether, if you will, I think that means a lot. Obviously, they're saying some silly things like you can go into space and see it, and blah blah blah. But how many people do you know that believe and love, the globe and whatnot? Say the word globetard, right? I have a short version of that.
Is the world round?
Yes, it's a globe.
Globetard.
I mean, come on, dude. I mean, the first time I ever heard that word was here in the server. Like, I'm pretty sure it was like QE who said it or something, you know? Globetard. To me, that's so funny. Like, I really like that. So, it's not that their position is well known. I don't think anyone can say, "Oh, Andrew Tate's a flat earther," but he's at least hinting at the topic, and then you could decide what his position is, or you can hear it and go and do your own research type of thing.
I found
know. Oh, great! Please, yeah, throw it in the chat.
Sorry, yeah.
Let me make sure you have the rules. Yeah, go ahead and throw that in the chat. If you have a clip, we can react to it in the bot as well.
Oh, I can clip it. Oh yeah, you can clip it. I'll do that real quick.
All right, cool. Yeah, let us know. But so I have appreciation for the fact that they're willing to at least put those words out into the ether, you know. And okay, I was gonna say that I know there's some people that have issues with that. They're saying things like, well, it has a bandwagon effect, and if people really like him, then they'll just blindly listen to the oh, well, then it's flat. They'll just go with it. I can see where people are coming from with that, but I might push back on that a little bit. This isn't necessarily a subject that has a bandwagon effect. Also, yeah, welcome Big Guy as well. I see you just joined the panel. If you have any questions, please let us know. You said, what's the procedure to join the live stream if I've really been invited? So yeah, welcome back. How was your last experience?
It was pretty good. We debated gas pressure most of the time.
Yeah, that's a good argument. All right. Well, what was your takeaway? And who, if you don't mind me asking, like, what team are you on? Whose team are you on?
Globe.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Welcome.
Enemy spotted.
Lamau.
That's fine. Everyone's welcome here. So, what did you think about the gas pressure argument, or do you have any rebuttals?
I was
where we left off.
I was actually a little dumbfounded that people didn't understand the difference between absolute vacuum and a relative vacuum. It seems like
I don't think that's really the issue here. I think the issue is the claim that you can have an open system with no containment, and so that seems to be the main issue. I don't think people are really out here saying like, oh no, it's a perfect vacuum, or we're not really debating the specifics of the vacuum itself. I mean, if you really want to get into it, my understanding is that you need a chamber to have a vacuum, but that's not really the argument. Well, I mean, that's fine.
You can go to the top of a mountain and measure the barometric pressure is lower than it was at sea level.
Well, see, that's where we start to get into. I think that's where we start to get into a little bit of an issue because, like, essentially, the sky being open and eventually turning into a vacuum is the claim. So what we can't do is just go up to the sky, point at it, and say, "Yep, there it is." I don't think that's fair to say. I think the claim needs to be demonstrated and proven, and not just. We can't just.
Let me ask you this question real quick. Can you have a gradient, a pressure gradient inside a container?
Yes.
Okay, good. So then a pressure gradient doesn't tell you that there's no container, since that's something that happens in a container, so we're back to square one.
What does the presence or absence of a container have to do with it?
Well, you keep talking about the gradient, right? And we're asking whether there's a container, and you go, well, there's a gradient, but you just told us that a gradient doesn't tell you there's no container. So now we're back at square one.
Yeah, well, so
Okay.
that's
And
the whole argument. Like,
mhm.
basically, the claim is that we have an open system, we have our gas pressure, and then there is no containment or no container for the gas pressure. So we're
I
arguing,
understand.
okay, we're arguing how, okay, we'd like to see a demonstration of that claim, but what I'm noticing is most people say, well, just go up to the sky, it's a gradient, see? It's like,
Okay.
well,
An
that's not,
alternative would be to put two barometric pressure sensors at opposite ends of just say a beaker, for example. Spin that beaker in a centrifuge, and you will measure a higher pressure at the far end, the one furthest away from the rotation point, than you will at the one near the rotation point.
So more
Creating
evidence of gradients in contained systems.
that would be a gradient in an uncontained system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but I think we just agreed moments ago that the gradient isn't in contention. We can all agree there is a gradient. The problem is
Mhm.
whether or not there is a some sort of containment. So
Okay.
right. So typically the question we ask is, can you demonstrate gas pressure without a container or some?
Yeah, that's what I just described.
no, because you speak only about a gradient, but the pressure difference between the so-called space and the pressure we measure on Earth is power to the, I don't remember the number, but it's a huge difference. So the question is the same: how you can have this difference of pressure without a container? You can't prove
It
it
just
with
takes a
a container.
force, and I described how to prove it.
Uh, how it's not the same as
What's
having a huge
what's
different
not the same?
pressure. It's only a little gradient. It's the mountain things. You
Hmm.
go to mountain and you see
Hmm.
that.
Okay, but take data points on your way to the top of the mountain and graph the pressure differential as you climb, and extrapolate that out to different altitudes.
Right.
Why would we do that though?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's we're still going back to the gradient at that point, which isn't in contention. We all agree that there is differential as you go higher, it gets less and less, but that doesn't
Okay,
necessarily mean that it's an open system and that there's no containment. At least that's what I would
but
argue.
whoa, hold on. But the pressure at the top of the mountain and the pressure at sea level are different, and that is an open container between those.
No, no,
That's the
No,
gradient. That's the gradient, right? You already told us that gradients form in containers. Yes, so the presence of a gradient doesn't indicate the absence of a container, because, like you said, a gradient will happen in a container.
let me give you
So we're
an
still
analogy.
wondering where this containment for the whole gradient is.
There is no container.
Oh,
Why? Okay, how do you know that?
that's the claim, brother. So that's the claim. Now we need like the evidence or demonstration. Let me give a quick analogy for folks
Hmm.
that might be helpful. Okay, if I told you guys that I had a rare banana tree that grows in my backyard and it doesn't have any, the bananas grow and no peel. They're peelless bananas, right? Okay, so that's my claim. And we show up to a picnic, and I'm like, and I hand you um, banana slices, and I go, here, well, here's that evidence of my claim. Would you accept that? I mean, if I showed up, you've never seen. First of all, you've never even seen a peelless banana. I've not personally. So if I rolled up to a picnic and I was like, well, here's a bunch of slices of banana, would that be evidence of my claim that it grew without a peel? Would you accept that?
No.
Right. So that's my issue. Is like they're saying that essentially the Earth is like a peelless banana. That there's no peel whatsoever. Well, people are rolling up to us and handing us slices. They're showing us a gradient, saying, look, there's slices of the gas pressure, the air. So the banana on the inside essentially would be the gas pressure. The slices are the gradient. So that's what they're offering us is slices. And we're saying, well, that's great, but that's not really demonstrating the claim that it came from no peel. Because as far as I'm concerned, every banana has to come from a peel. That's a kind of an extraordinary claim. So I don't think we can use that those slices of the air or slices of banana to prove
Okay.
that it didn't come from a peel. So that's what I'm saying. That's what we need to see is like we need to go to that tree and be like, okay, there's the
I
bananas, no peel, right?
I think I see the problem now that the majority of you, possibly all of you, don't believe that a relative vacuum is significant.
No, it's not that
Like
at all.
you only
Sorry.
believe in an absolute vacuum. You don't
You don't.
accept that
No,
a
there is a
lower
state.
pressure is a vacuum.
There is a state, a vacuum state called the kinetic state, where statistically atoms don't collide anymore between them. And this
Mhm.
state of vacuum is hard to obtain here on Earth. And you are telling us that this gradient is achieving this state of vacuum somehow. We want an experiment that shows that because in a container you can
Okay,
only uh,
but you're
uh,
demanding the extreme.
Well,
yeah
the claim is
And
because
you're
extraordinary. You
the
see,
problem is
vacuum,
you're refusing to accept any evidence except for the very extreme.
Okay, well, what's
And
the
that
evidence? We're looking for evidence that the gradient that you keep pointing to is uncontained next to the vacuum of space. What's the evidence for that?
yeah, because the vacuum of space is a near perfect vacuum, so it's achieve this kinetic state of vacuum. So the mountain things is not a proof of this kinetic state of vacuum.
We know it's not a proof. He already said that gradients form in containers, so it's no proof of no container, of course. So we're just wondering what that proof is.
and I can accept that we're asking for an extraordinary evidence because the claim is quite extraordinary, right? It's an extreme claim, so let's
it
see the
doesn't,
extreme evidence.
but let's deal with something other than the extreme. That's what I'm proposing.
But we can only deal with the claim as it's presented to us. They're telling us this is what it is, so we have to address that claim for what it is. You see?
Okay, but your claim is that a vacuum cannot exist next to higher pressure.
Now
And
you're
that is
going to talk
easy
about
to
relative
disprove.
vacuums again, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking specifically
We
about the
are.
claim of the vacuum of space existing next to the pressure gradient that you keep talking about the relative vacuums within. We're not talking about those relative, yeah, we're not talking about those relative vacuums. We're not talking about the pressure at sea level relative to the pressure at the top of Mount Everest. We're talking about that whole gradient that you're pointing to next to the vacuum of outer space. That's what we're talking about.
On our way to get to that point, how do you explain that the higher pressure at sea level doesn't work its way up to the top of the mountain?
Hey, bruh. Keep going on with that shit, aren't you?
Yeah, we have to agree that this isn't in contention. You know what I'm saying? We have to
It
agree
doesn't
that
matter because you already told us that gradients form in containers. So, okay, that's perfectly acceptable within a container.
Form in containers. I didn't say they always do.
Yeah, but you said that they do. And then you
They
keep
can.
pointing to the gradient as proof that there's no container after telling us that that's something that will happen in a container. So you got to give that up.
I said they can form.
Yeah, there you go.
To
They
do
can
so
form.
requires energy. It requires a force, like a centrifuge.
Okay, well, where's the rotation to get centrifugal force?
The centrifuge itself, like a little machine that spins test tubes around.
But is that your claim with regards to the Earth, though?
No, it isn't.
Let's get off of that then.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be evidence for the claim then. It's kind of like a distraction, almost, I would say. So
No, what I'm doing is I'm showing that you can have a low pressure area next to a high pressure area without a barrier between them.
We know that happens in containers.
It
told
can
us.
happen without a container. It happens all the time.
Okay, well, let's get a conclusive example of it happening without any container.
Climb to the top of a mountain. How's
Okay, but that's
not true.
great that needs contained, though.
You
It's like
presuppose there is no container.
okay, everybody's talking over each other. How about one at a time?
let me just go first, and then model builder, you can go next. I just want to say we're not saying that there has to be a container between each layer of the gradient. We're saying overall, to have a gradient, you need a container in the first place. So we're not saying like, oh, when you go to the top, there needs to be a layer. We need to be a container here and then here. Like there needs to be 50 containers for all the layers. That's not what we're saying at all. So pointing at going up to the bottom
That's
and saying, look,
not what
there's a
I'm putting
gradient.
forward.
Well, okay, well, pointing at the gradient isn't evidence of lack of containment. That's the issue. Go ahead, model or heretic.
Well, let's put it this way, real quick. We're the gradient that you're talking about. That is what we're saying needs the containment. So just saying, well, there's a gradient. Well, that's what we're saying needs contained. We know. So go ahead, model builder.
Okay, then what's the containment as you work your way up to the top of a mountain?
Well, why is
That
he doing
You are
that?
beginning
This,
the question of the containment because you presuppose there is no container on Earth. But there is, I was telling you about the kinetic state of vacuum. You did not answer about this point, but it's okay. How about the fact that you are presupposing the fact there is no container on Earth with this experiment?
But you're presupposing that there is a container and you have no
Because
evidence of
every
that.
well,
experiment,
well,
No,
because
well, time
every
out, time
experiment,
out, time out, time out. So number one, gas pressure requires containment. It's in the definition. Number two,
It
you can
doesn't.
have, excuse me,
It doesn't require containment.
uh, it's in the definition. And don't interrupt me, please.
All right, keep
Is
going.
that okay? So I'll start again. Gas pressure requires containment. It's in the definition. The gas molecules exerted on the walls of the container. Second of all, that falls in line with your centrifuge argument, specifically because as the as whatever contraption you have is spinning, it's going to be spinning outward towards the contained walls of the system. And you also said, which we all know, that you can have a gas pressure gradient in a container. So, seeing is that we have gas pressure on Earth, and all of our experiences is that you have to have containment or a finite volume for a particular pressure or any pressure. We're trying to figure out if anybody can validate that you can have gas pressure without containment. Second thing, though, if you don't really like it worded like that, let's be honest, everybody thinks that the gas is held here by gravity. So we'd like to know if you have any validation for gravity actually slowing down, stopping, or affecting the entropy of gases. Because that's what the claim really is.
Repeat the last part.
The entropy of a gas going from high pressure to low pressure,
Mm-hmm.
like the expanding volume of the vacuum of space.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just have air here.
Mm-hmm. You want to know why it doesn't expand into outer space.
Now I want to know how you have gas pressure without containment and if you can validate that.
It's easy to validate.
Are you
You can look
going
it up.
to beg the question to do it?
No.
Well, um
Stop the cap.
if we have gas pressure and we know that gas pressure requires containment, it's an antecedent for gas pressure and gas pressure gradients, then the only person with the claim that you can have gas pressure without containment is you. So you're saying that because of the earth. So pointing to the earth is begging the question.
I don't have to point to the Earth.
Well,
But that's
you
what you
did.
do. That's what you're doing. Remember when you went to the top of the mountain, you're pointing at the sky and saying, "See, there it is. That's the claim." You can't point to the claim and then say, "Well, my claim is now also proof."
So,
Doesn't work.
so do you want me to come up with some kind of example that is completely separate from Earth
No,
somehow? I don't.
that is a part of reality. Like gas pressure requiring containment is a part of reality. Um,
Oh, so you're saying there's nothing I can do to
I mean,
that you will
newsflash,
accept?
maybe.
well,
Mm,
I mean, you could prove that you can have gas pressure without containment without begging the question if it was true. Because guess what? You can't prove things that aren't true. That's the problem with things
Okay,
that aren't true.
let's talk about containment then.
Okay, you want the definition from NASA or what?
I don't know.
Well, you said let's talk about containment.
What
Do you
would you
want the
accept
let's
as?
start with the definition. Do you want the definition from NASA or what?
I don't care. Let's just define it.
Okay, so let's start with the definition. Anybody have that citation on hand?
I'm gonna hit the search bar in the server search function. Eli, what do you want me to look up? The gas pressure and the
Yeah,
walls.
gas pressure
Yeah.
definition.
Box Ops
Well,
has it in the chat. He's posted it there a few times.
Cool. There you go.
Here
yeah,
you go.
the definition of
NASA.gov. Hold on. Let me open up. Let me open up the website. Look at that. Wow. Um,
Oh yeah.
from the
Guy.
kinetic theory of gases, a gas is composed of a large number of molecules that are very small relative to the distance between molecules. The molecules of a gas are in a constant random motion and frequently collide with each other and with the walls of any container. Hmm.
so in the middle of the container where it's not touching any walls, is there pressure in the middle?
That's a red herring like a MFer because
Yeah.
obviously
Yes or no?
I in the definition I gave you, even though the gas molecules are colliding with each other, in the end it says and the walls of the
Okay.
container. And, not or, and.
Okay, let's think outside of the box. Can
Let's
gas
not
pressure
think
Gotta
outside
exist
of the
think
box.
when there
outside
are
of the
no
Let's not,
box.
walls?
we can't think outside of the box. So what does that even
I've
mean?
noticed that.
Yeah, but
Most of you don't
so,
understand what
so wait a
relative
minute.
pressure is.
As a flat earther, I thought we would have to think outside of the box. But anyway, I'm just going with the definition of gas pressure. And all we're trying to get from you is if it's possible to have gas pressure without a container. And you keep talking about how you can have a gas pressure gradient, which we know you can within a container. So if the question is about the supposed vacuum of space in the air we have here, all we have is the antecedent of gas requiring a container. Like, the antecedent of a ribeye is a cow. I don't need to see the cow. I just know that the cow preceded it. That's what an antecedent is. Now, you can't just make up there being gas pressure with no container without anyone ever having experienced it and then trying to beg the question of, well, look at the sky. Do you want to go to the definition of begging the question?
No.
So, I mean, what's the resistance here? Can't you just say, I can't or I don't know?
To what?
I can't produce evidence of gas pressure without a container. Can't you say that? I mean, because we're going to the definition of gas pressure. We've I asked you if you wanted me to pull up the definition of begging the
I
question so that
I
I can
can't
show
come
you
up with
that.
any that you will accept.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, I wouldn't accept no evidence, which is what you're trying to give us, and the begging the question fallacy on top of that, which is what you're trying
Yeah,
to
but
give us.
you're all
Are you
begging the
trying
question by
to?
saying that there is
Why
a
are you
container.
interrupting me, bro? It was a very easygoing conversation until this started happening.
Okay, go ahead.
What's the problem?
I apologize.
So I can't accept no evidence, which is what you're trying to give us, but you're trying to give us an explanation, which presumes your conclusion, which is a begging the question fallacy. Now, I can understand if you were contesting whether or not you were begging the question, then we could just go to the definition of begging the question and whether or not your words are forming the fallacy. And then we could go from there. Like, either you're doing
I
it or
don't.
you're not. And if you're
Yeah.
doing it, I know you can't expect us to accept something that is fallacious in lieu of zero evidence, right? Is
Yeah.
that reasonable?
That's reasonable.
So what are we doing here?
Can I also add really quickly? It's just that if you're familiar with burden of proof, like if my neighbor claims he won the
Yeah,
lottery,
I get it.
yeah, it's on him. You can't say, well, no, you're saying I don't, so you have to prove it.
Extreme claims, extreme proof. I get it.
Right. So it's not that we're begging the question. If anything, we're just addressing the claim that's already on the table. So we don't have a new claim. We're just asking if
Yeah,
it is true.
and I'm just trying to understand what I need to look up for next time. So let me just kind of spell it out. I need to come up with some kind of repeatable experiment or example, an observation where we have gas pressure next, a higher gas pressure next to a lower gas pressure, and no barrier between them. Is that right? And it
No,
also cannot be inside of any type of container.
no. Well, how you going to create gas pressure? Like you have to create it, not find a gradient in nature because we already
Why?
know
Why
that
not?
exists.
Because that's not the
Okay,
Because
we
then
claim.
know.
you would be back to begging the question again.
No, what I would be doing is
No, you would be back to begging the question now if you want to deny it. Sorry to interrupt you. That's why I asked you if you wanted to go to the definition because we can't play this game because now you're circle jerking us.
I'm not.
Like, so you
I
just said, go ahead.
okay.
How aren't you?
Okay. So one of your what I believe one of your premises
Not
is
my
that
premise. How you're
all
circle
right.
jerking us. You're trying to give us
Can I
premises.
finish? Can I
Why?
finish?
Why I just don't want you to speak about our premises because we didn't make a claim. I just read out a definition of gas pressure, and it also just happens to be an antecedent. That's not. We're not making an argument, but you're making a counterclaim. So,
How about I ask a question?
well, how about you just provide evidence,
You don't want
or
to
or
face my
say it's not
question.
possible? Well, a question is not really evidence, so what difference would it make?
Because
I'm
I need to understand the environment before I can
But you
start
do.
producing evidence for you. I can't bring in
not
citations if I don't know what you believe.
It's
not
not.
really. I don't even know why you're trying to take on the world in this regard. We already know that uh the answer, the academic answer is gravity. So that then begs the question, not in the form of a fallacy, but just the colloquial usage of begging the question. So that then begs the question, okay, what gravity? And has that ever been scientifically validated?
Okay,
Seeing as
so
that it's supposed to be causing an effect, the effect being gas pressure, the cause being gravity, that would fall under the realm of the scientific method and hypotheses. So, if that were the case, then all we would ask you is for evidence of that. That's not,
so
I mean, is that unreasonable?
is the whole point of the third question just so that you can attack gravity, or are you
No.
actually
No.
The
concerned
whole
about?
point of the third question is to show people all they have is a belief because there's no answer to number one, there's no answer to number two, and there's no answer to number three. It's not that we made the questions up completely non sequitur to the conversation because question one, two, and three is about the claims that are already on the table that we didn't make. So if I come up to you and I say I have three claims, are you going to just take them as read or are you going to say, okay, go on, prove those three claims to me? Each premises, go on, right? Wouldn't that be reasonable?
That's all we're doing, big guy. We're not making new claims. We have 3 new claims. We're addressing the 3 claims that's on the table. So if you're like, well, I'm confused on what I should present, we have to present evidence for the actual claim. So that's all it is, man. And I'll give you a pro tip, brother. A lot of what we do here is sending people on a wild goose chase to look for something that may not be there. Or we could just rip the band-aid off and tell you how it is. But it seems like you believe the evidence is there, so we're giving you the chance to present it. So that's all.
Yeah, and the evidence is there. I'm trying to figure out under what criteria you will accept evidence. So I
Well,
need
so
to.
far, so far
Hold
you've
on,
only
hold on.
Oh my God.
Forgive me, creation.
all good,
Correct
brother.
me if I'm wrong in thinking it's disrespectful to me have answered that question already, because I told you I will accept evidence not in the form of fallacious reasoning like begging the question. That's
That
what I
goes
said.
without saying.
Okay. So that's what I require. Evidence, and the evidence can't be begging the question. What's the problem? If you can't
So,
do it, that's fine. Because nobody, like, it's not your fault. It's just the belief that you have.
Right. Just like my neighbor who claimed he won the lottery, right? If he's like, well, look, I have a nice car. Like, well, that's not necessarily verifying your claim. And then you can't say like, well, what would you accept? We all you you all know what you would accept. If you're claiming you won the lottery, I need to see that ticket. I need to see the winning ticket. I need to
all right.
see something that actually proves that claim to be true, not some red herring that, oh, well, look at my nice car.
Okay. Well, I gotta go.
No
I'm
problem,
out
bro.
of time.
It's been a good
Sorry.
conversation.
Um,
Time.
I'd like to come back,
Please.
but I don't know what to bring. We didn't get around to it. I kept getting interrupted as I was asking.
I could
Direct evidence.
or
Okay.
experimental evidence of gravity containing air pressure. How about?
Sure. I gotta go. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Come back anytime. Wow.
What is your profession?
See, old friend, I brought more soldiers than you did.